Welcome to the Flat Earth Podcast. I am Rick Flat, your host. If you're joining us for the first time, it's great to see you. If you're back for more, like, what's going on, man? You're a glutton for punishment and you've got something else to do. If you want to find out anything more about the Flat Earth Podcast, jump onto theflatearthpodcast.com. There you'll find the episodes, but also you'll find blogs and more information about who I am, what's going on, link to the Spotify podcast from there. Also, there's a little PayPal button. You can go on there. You want to buy a brother a Mars bar or a house? I'm not going to stop you. Anyway, sticking to our pattern, we have been doing a guest podcast one week with someone here in the salubrious surroundings of the Flat Earth Podcast studio. And then we've been having a time of just me and you. Just we're trying to get back on track, relight the fire, just get to know each other, a little bit of you and me time. And that's what we're doing today. I want to talk to you a little bit about something I've been thinking about. You know, I really didn't want to, as someone starting out doing a podcast, I really didn't want to talk to you about COVID. I didn't want to talk to you about this whole controversy. It just seems all played out. If you're anything like me, like you're just sick of hearing about it. But it just so happens as I sit down to record this, there's a new kind of chapter of it kicking off. Like it's December 1st today. So lots of stuff going on, and ahead of Christmas, everyone's kind of on tenterhooks about what was going to happen. But let me give you a little bit of an overview, my take of where we are before I talk a little bit about it. And then through the medium of me continuing to build a driveway, I want to talk about something I've noticed about people in the world, and we'll speak to some of the situation we're in at the moment. Most of you won't know my background. I've done various jobs since I left school at 15, but I was a pastor of a couple of churches for 15 years, and I stepped out of doing that in March 2020 to write books, to eventually do this podcast, and just kind of get into a different space in my life. And I thought I'd take a month off. I said I'd take a month off, just kind of like Netflix and chill, you know, just to sit on the sofa and eat Doritos. And then in a month, I'll begin all my projects and the next thing. So I did that March 2020. Little did I know that by the time I'd sort of finished that and was kind of ready to kind of go and sit in cafes and write a book and just be out and about and doing my thing, the world shut down. We had this nasty flu come around, and here we are. We're almost 2 years later since its inception, and you've got to be honest. I mean, I don't even know if you're conscious, if you're not looking around the world at the moment and just going like, where are the adults? Why have all the adults left the room? What the hell is happening? Like, what is going on? It's just mad. And lately there seems to just be like a succession of weird, crazy things. We've had lockdowns. I mean, the first lockdown in our family, we talk about the glorious days of lockdown 1. Oh, beautiful. In England, it was sunny for like months, so people didn't mind being off work on the orders of their employer. Everyone was chilling, everyone was joyful. It was kind of happy before we had to all really homeschool and stuff. We were all just kind of chilling. We talk about the glory days of lockdown 1, but since then, in our country at least, there's been 2 more, maybe a secret 3 one is coming in or has come in. You know, things have gotten worse and worse. Just lately, we've had crazy stuff go on. World leaders doing weird stuff, countries doing weird stuff, weird laws that make no sense. We've had shortages. We have shortages of everything. A little while ago in our country, we had a fuel shortage that was caused not because we were short of fuel, but because some people said, oh, we're going to be short of fuel. So everyone with a car or 2 went out the day after this rumour started and bought diesel and petrol. So lo and behold, we had a diesel and petrol shortage. It was crazy. It was like some rationing in the war. You had like friends phoning each other like, bro, how much fuel you got? How much fuel you got? You know, people cancelling life events because I can't afford to drive there. You're not worth my time. I've got to conserve this petrol. Whatever I need is what I need that. In the early days of the big pandemic here in England, we ran out of like toilet roll pasta. Do you remember this shit? Toilet roll pasta. Weird. With Christmas coming up, we've been told there's going to be shortages of mince pies, shortages of Brussels sprouts, shortages of baked potatoes, shortages of gravy, shortages of Christmas crackers, shortages of Christmas novelty hats. Santa, even in adverts last year, Santa's doing well this year. Santa this year in an advert was displayed as about to be quarantined, but he has a a vaccine passport so we can get through. But last year, I don't know if you knew this because it got buried pretty quick because of the reaction to it. There was I believe it was an NHS advert of Santa being taken into the ICU and put on a respirator. It's bad times, man. It's bad times. World leaders on the world stage, stuff is going crazy. We've got President Biden, the glorious American president. He visited the Vatican, accidentally shit his pants while talking to the Pope. We've got our man Boris in this country speaking to a delegation of business leaders the other day, wanting to hear the conservative drive, and he spoke about the virtues of Peppa Pig, which I got to be honest, I love Peppa Pig as much as the next man, but it seemed odd. Just madness. It seems to be that people are on a short fuse as well. If you talk to people personally outside of government and nations, people are agitated. People are they're very close to being angry at any moment, snapping, of being really pissed off really quickly about stuff. Our society is being spliced into two. I wear a mask, I don't wear a mask. I'm vaccinated, I'm not vaccinated. I'm in favour of the lockdowns, I'm not in favour of lockdowns. I believe in the science, I don't believe in the science. I trust the government, I don't trust the government. It's just crazy stuff. It's just disorientating stuff. The world is mad. And most of us thought, we're beginning to come out of it. This is good, particularly in England. I know in parts of the world you've got like Australia freaking out. Australia, it has been mad throughout it. Not all of Australia, it's a big place, but certain districts in Australia, certain areas have been crazy. One area at the moment are taking people, if they get a positive test, they are taking them, forcing them into vans and taking them to essentially internment camps. And if you've had any contact with any of those people, you'll get taken there too. And you have to pay. It's like $1,000, $2,000. If you're a family, it's like $5,000. Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. A little while ago, Austria was the first country to say, to mandate vaccines. You have to, regardless of anything, you have to get this vaccine. Well, now I'm not going to stepping too much into the vaccine thing at the moment, man. But it's just to say, it feels like the adults have left the room and the leaders and people involved seem unqualified, untrustworthy, and it's very easy to lose hope. It's very easy at the moment to just think like, screw it, we're doomed. And then just a couple of days ago, the previous Sunday here in England, our Prime Minister and our two health officials, Valence and Whitty, who looks like a cross between a cartoon dinosaur and a sex doll, and Valence, who just, I don't know, he just looks like, like the Smoky Man in X-Files with like a shadowy figure in the background. He looks like he's got that kind of vibe about him. But these are our two medical professionals who must be trusted, even though we've found out that a lot of their interests are funded by the pharmaceutical industry. But we're not going to get into that. Even though we're the Flat Earth podcast, we're not going to go conspiracy just yet. But there's crazy stuff. Anyway, back to Boris. Boris says, look, we need to know, we need to make you aware that there's a new variant on the loose. We need to make you aware. We've discovered it in South Africa, but now I've discovered like 3 or 4 cases in Scotland, and it's going to begin appearing. Now, this variant, it seems that it is far more transmissible, i.e. it travels, it can travel quicker from person to person. Very dangerous. They named this variant Omicron, the Omicron. Now, it is very interesting. I don't know if you've heard this, but one of the first things I heard about it, Omicron is an anagram of moronic. Anagram, I know, I'll give you a minute. I know right now you're like, nah, you're trying to find a bit of paper and a pen. You're trying to grab your phone, and I'll give you a minute. Omicron, moronic. It's an anagram. They fit together. It's right. I've written it out myself. So this new variant is now taking the world on storm. We're a few days later, and countries have gone crazy, and they've all begun to shut down flights again and ban people and bring in our country. We've brought back masks mandatory in shops and in restaurants and in pubs and in gyms and in schools, and madness. But what do we know about this right now? All we know about this right now is it's more transmissible. But with no data at all to say it's any more fatal, that you get any sicker, that you get sick quicker or in any different way. There are no new symptoms. And let me just give you a stat, because you've got to keep this in mind. when we're talking about COVID. I'm going to say one thing. I'll say this once, and then you've got to listen and just accept it, right? Of course, COVID is a thing. Like, no one's denying that it isn't a thing. Right now, my friend and his family are coming out of a particularly nasty bout of COVID. They got the tests. They know for sure they've got it. They've been dog tired, right? But they survived. Another friend of mine spent a couple of weeks on ICU, on lots of oxygen. And for a minute there, we were a little bit worried about him. But he came out, he said, I'm good. He's not vaxxed. I'm just saying. And everyone else on the ward was vaxxed, just saying. And so I'm not denying that COVID's real. Of course it's real. But that if you look into the statistics that governments put out, that medical boards put out, this is the one thing we never hear about. The survival rate of COVID, right? Now I'm gonna pick a target zone, right? 60 to 70. So in the age bracket of 60 to 70, which if COVID is a sniper up in a bell tower, and it's looking to target and hit people easily, in its crosshairs is everyone over 60. Okay, it's like fatties and everyone over 60, right? Anyone with a low immune system or some comorbidity, right? But that 60 to 70 bracket is like, it's right there. Like COVID loves to sit in that bell tower all day, just pop, 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 just pick them off. The survival rate from COVID for the 60 to 70 bracket is 99.4100%. That's the survival rate. 99.4100%. They are mad odds. There is not a bet you wouldn't place if they were your odds of winning. You bet on anything if they were your odds. Those odds are amazing. I don't know what the odds are of dying in a road traffic accident. I don't know what the odds are of dying falling off a ladder. I don't know what the odds are of dying of a wasp sting or a beetle bite or a splinter. But I imagine they're comparable. They're comparable. There's something that's happened as the adults have left the room and we seem to have gone mad. There's something that's happened the way we've covered this where it's out of all proportion. I mean, sure, it's affected a lot, but every year flu affects a lot. Every year cancer affects a lot. Every year any number of conditions affect a lot. But there's something to our reaction. And I want to talk about why it's been so hard to get through this and what's made it so confusing. I want to talk a little bit about the leadership that we've seen and how different leaders have spoken about this pandemic and why it's maybe sat a little bit strange with us. And I'm going to do it. And just before I move on, that stat I just quoted on the statistical survival rate of the 60 to 70 bracket. That was a epidemiological study done out of Stanford. It was cited in the New American. You can find it, and you'll find if you search well, you'll find these. These are not hidden from view, and you should know that that's the very worst survival rate. Actually, if you get to someone at my age, it's like 99.999. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Anyway, I'd like to talk to you about leadership during this pandemic and our position in the world and stuff. And I'd like to talk about it through the continuing medium of me building a driveway on the front of my house. Okay? I've been building a driveway for a while. It's been 11 years we've been here, and my wife has been like, we need to get parking on the front. We should really do it. We should really do it. And I've been like, yeah, I'll do it. I'll get around to it. Don't worry, I'll get around to it. And eventually we did it. We're in like a conservation area here in Hertfordshire, so we had to get like deep planning permission. It took a while. And I spoke last time when we did a You and Me podcast about honour and what I was learning from a hard day's work, just digging soil and moving it from one place to another, preparing the soil section for the driveway. Now, I'm going to, if you don't get anything else out of this podcast, right, anything out of this moment, here is a little bit of DIY advice. Here is how you build a driveway. You take your area in which you want to lay a driveway, and firstly, you look at it. You have to take up any grass that's there, any plants, bushes, trees, and then you're left with the soil, trying to move big rocks. You level that whole area. So layer one is your soil. You try your best to flatten that out. Then on top of your soil, you put a weed suppressant fabric. Okay, does what it says, stops the weeds coming through. On top of your weed suppressant fabric, you then put a thing called a sub base. Sub base is or MOT, or type 1 it's called, right? It's like grey stones, lots of dust, everything from like dust size up to like 10-20 mil of stones. You lay that on top, and then you use a machine, a pneumatical press or something. I don't know what essentially it's called a whacker. Okay, it's called a whacker. It's a little thing. It's like a lawnmower handle. It's got a petrol engine. Then it's got a metal plate that essentially does exactly what it says in the tin. Just whack, 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 whack. You know, it just does that. If you hold it on ground that's already solid, it just bounces. But if you put it on that sub base, what it does is it slowly presses down, compounds that sub base into a solid, more solid structure. It solidifies the sub base material into the soil and compacts it. And on top of that, this is when you choose your decorative stone of choice. Et voila, you have a driveway. Now, your decorative stone of choice, that's up to you. We've gone for like 20 mil gravel. You could go for like any kind of shingle, slate. Hell, you could do it in marbles. It's up to you, right? But that's how you build a driveway. And it takes so long. I realized the process is so long to get to the sub base. It takes a long time to sort the soil out. It takes a long time. You lay the weed suppressant, and then you shovel out all the sub base, and then it's a long time of walking around in concentric circles with a whacker, just whack, 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 pressure, whack, 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 pressure, 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 whack, whack. You know, that's the bulk of the work, and then eventually you get to the point where you put the gravel on. I put the gravel on in a couple of hours. Gravel's on, and it's done. Magical transformation. While I was building my driveway, the daughter of one of my neighbours who backs onto us, who often walks by with her dog, well, their dog, she comes and walks her parents' dog, and she said, "Oh, this is lovely. You're doing a lovely job." I was like, "Thank you very much. You know, I'm doing the best I can." And she told me the story of her neighbour who put a gravel driveway on the front of his garden. But what this guy did is he just went out into his garden, he looked at it, he decided, I want to park on the front. He laid a load of plastic bags on the ground, didn't prepare the ground, and just shed loads of gravel over the top and then parked on it. So I wanted to see, I was like, I mean, that's not the way you do a gravel driveway. I've told you the layers, I've told you the whacking, I've told you everything's involved. So that night I walked the dog, me and Cooper, my black lab, we walk over past this guy's house. I know where she lives, just a couple of roads over. I see this guy's garden. Chaos. Just a wreck, just devastation, just awfulness. A lot of the bags were missing. There were patches where there was no gravel, patches where there was too much gravel. Gravel all up the path to his house. Gravel all swept off into the road. Divots in the ground where the weight of his car just pushed down into the soil. Just chaos. Chaos. It's not how you build a driveway. I could have told you it was going to happen. But something dawned on me as I was thinking about it. You could have turned up at that guy's house at the moment he had laid his last bag of gravel and taken a photo. And you could have parked his car on it and taken a photo of the car and said, here is gravel driveway. And you might have just gone, wow, look at that. What a lovely gravel driveway that is. And you could have come to my driveway, which took me a week and a bit. And you could have taken a photo just as I laid the gravel. And you go, oh, look at this. That's lovely. Look at that gravel driveway. It's lovely. Look at that. You could have put my car in and gone, look, it fits perfectly. Look at that. Wicked. Look at that railway timber edge and the new fence. Oh, man, it did work, you know. But they're actually two different structures. Two different structures. And I realised that some of my ill feelings, some of my yucky ickiness during this time, particularly with the leaders of the world, particularly with the response to much of what's gone on in this flu season, is because our leaders have shown themselves to have some form of decorative finish, but actually quite a lot of their underneath is not settled. It moves. That's why we've had leaders come out and they promise us this is just short term. It's just 3 weeks. 2 years later, we're in it. You go, oh, whoa, you said only 3 weeks. That's why leaders can tell you, we're never going to do this, and then they bring it in the next day. We've got no plans. You find out they're spending millions researching it. what they purport to be on the surface is not what they are underneath. You see, my driveway, you can jump up and down on my driveway. You will move the top stones, you'll move the gravel, but that subbase is fixed. That soil is compacted and smooth. You go to Matey's driveway, who just threw it together, you jump up and down, your feet will sink down past the gravel, past, if there's a plastic bag still left there, and right down into the soil. It's soft, it's not set. I thought of maybe a better way to explain this to help for me to help you get what I'm saying. I thought about a tennis ball and I thought about a cannonball. Now, a tennis ball, it has the form of a ball. It's a spherical object. And a cannonball has the form of a ball. It's a spherical object. They're similar. One is made of felt and rubber. One is made of metal or stone. Now, the tennis ball, if you take the tennis ball, you go, yeah, okay, it's round, it rolls, it does all the stuff a round object should do. But at its core, it is empty. If you cut a tennis ball in half, you'll find that most of it is air. Well, actually, I found out it's gas. They actually put gas in a tennis ball to give it that bounce, to give it pressure. And the thing about a tennis ball is, no matter who you are, whatever size you are, if you try hard enough and you can apply enough pressure, you could put that between your hands and you could slowly squeeze until you make it flat. Because at its core, it's not solid, it's empty. But the cannonball over here, if you were to cut it in half, you'd see that the two halves of the cannonball, they're the same. The core matches the edge. And if you were to take a cannonball and you were to put it between your hands and you would try and squeeze that down, your hands, your bones would give way before the cannonball was. Because what it is at its edges, it is at its center. Its interior matches its exterior. You understand? And as I've looked at leaders, and I can't talk to all the leaders in your country, wherever you are, but the leaders in my country, as I've looked how they've maneuvered and lied and cajoled and what they've done, I've seen some people where they're saying one thing, they're saying it's for our good. They're saying there's no other motives. They're saying it's the science. But for many of them, if you just give them a little squeeze, you find there's nothing really there. And you know this, and I know you know this, because here's a little exercise for you. Think of a world leader on the world stage during this flu season, during these last couple of years, right? Think of one that has shown themselves to be trustworthy, whose actions have matched their words. I'll wait. I'll wait a minute. It's going to be very hard, because like one by one, we've seen that what they say publicly is not what they do privately. That what they promise publicly is not what they're planning behind the scenes. It is a lack of core. The word that's good to describe this is a lack of integrity. Integrity. Some solid moral base from which they're working from. We don't have that. Our leader, for instance, he's a clusterfuck of confusing ideas. He really is. This is a guy who like, he has a private meeting with bankers. He talks to the bankers. He says, look, really, if the earth is going to survive, we need to depopulate the earth. And everyone claps. This is good. We need depopulation. Yes. But man's had 7 kids, man. 6, 7 kids. He doesn't know. No one knows how many kids Boris got. There are kids everywhere, just doing everything. We have world leaders saying you must wear a mask at all times. And we constantly have images, pictures of them, footage of them at restaurants, at shops, at private functions, at functions where it's just all of them, all the politicians together. No one's wearing a mask. No one's social distancing. The decorative stone of what they're saying doesn't match the subbase. It's not there. They are a badly built drive. Their surface is a mirage. It is to fool you and make you not look at what's underneath, because what underneath it is moving. It's transitory. And we know this. We know how many governments have been swayed by opinion instead of science, instead of experience. And it's been an eye-opener for me as we've all learnt more. I mean, let's face it, we've all become part-time epidemiologists, part-time transmissible disease experts. We've all read up on it. We've all got statistics. We've all got opinions. We've all got people we like. I get it. But the interesting thing, I think you have to agree, as you've looked into these things, it seems like we have had a novel reaction in the way we've treated what we've called a novel virus, okay? And much of what the communities that normally deal with pandemics learnt and knew for sure has been laid aside, and we've gone into some madness. Do you know that there was never enforced lockdowns, never enforced mask wearing in any pandemic to this degree ever? There was you can say what you want about masks, but it's a case in point here in England. It's just been brought back. But I heard someone say the other day, that to understand, you understand the size of viruses and the size of masks. So I'm not talking about the proper masks that surgeons wear in operating theatres. I'm talking about these little kind of Mickey Mouse cloth coverings that we take. You know, I heard someone say that this is effectively the structure of those cloth masks. If you equate it to the size of scaffolding, that the size of COVID particles, which we're purporting they stop, are the size of marbles. And if you can imagine throwing marbles at scaffolding and trying to hit the wall behind the scaffolding, occasionally a marble will ping off a bit of the scaffolding and be rebounded out of the way, but most of them are going to get through. That's your masks. That's your masks. And we know that, and you know that, because if you Google, you try and DuckDuckGo, whatever you got to do, reports on masks, you'll find there aren't many that recommend them. And where they are recommended, if you look at the studies are always N95 masks, the pure, hard to breathe in medical masks that are used once in one situation for one time and then thrown away. There is no report, long-term use of cloth masks that we all put in our pocket, that we all keep in our cars, that we all throw in a bag, that we touch and adjust every time. Like, do you remember this? Like early in the pandemic, there was a big press conference and there was a woman and she talked about wearing a mask, and she was, this is her, she said, it's important that we wear our masks and keep social distance, and whatever you do, just don't touch your face, particularly not your eyes, and everyone's watching it because she's saying don't do it, and she's doing it. She's touching her face and her eyes. That hasn't gone away. That this virus can be transmitted through your eye ducts, through getting in your eyes, through being on your face and then being moved around by your hands or other stuff. That's not gone away. So you think that covering your nose and your mouth just does it? No. How quickly we forget these things. We forget stuff. I heard a heartbreaking story of a woman in, I think it was Australia, New Zealand, and this is a woman who's deeply allergic to, she has a condition where a lot of the particular ingredients of all the vaccines are the thing that she's allergic to. So she cannot take the vaccine. Even if she wanted to, she cannot do it for fear of an allergic reaction, which she's had numerous times through numerous different products. She's got a lot of stuff going on, right? So she cannot take the vaccine. She went to a doctor who knows all about her, has been with her through this whole process of learning what these things she's allergic to, these conditions she has. And she went there to get an exemption, a government exemption. And the doctor looked at her and said, I can't issue you an exemption. She said, what do you mean? You know me. You know that the ingredients of these vaccines are the very thing I'm allergic to, but you can't offer me exemption. Why not? She goes, I can't offer you because of the legal exposure it puts me in. You can find this on the Dark Horse podcast, Brett Weinstein. Check that out. But very interesting. It's like, we know you can't get the vaccine, but I can't give you the government exemption because it puts me in very strange legal area. So the woman actually said, well, hold on. Well, what if I insist you give me the vaccine? And then a doctor said, well, I wouldn't give you the vaccine because I know that you'd have an allergic reaction to it. What is going on? Like, I know doctors, and doctors are like good people. Most of them want to help. And that in our country, and I guess it's around the world, we have the Hippocratic Oath, do no harm. But that seems to be set aside during this time because of all this strange information and weird stuff that's going on. I don't get it. I just constantly just don't get it. What is going on? And I think that what's going on and why it feels like the adults has left the room is because so many of our leaders have not done the hard work of working on their core moral framework. They're all just decorative finish. And to have integrity is hard work. We talked about that moment in the order where you've got the soil, you've got the wheat press, and you've got a sub base, and then you've got the whack, 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 whack. That whack, whack, whack in life, experiences, difficulties, learning, empathy, love, disappointment, those things help build integrity in someone. And many of our leaders simply don't have integrity. So they won't say, well, we've always known this. They won't trust doctors and individuals to do stuff. No, we'll legislate broadly across all of it. It feels like the adults have left the room because the grown-up people we have in the room have not done the hard work and allowed time and pressure to form integrity in them. Now, it's not always good just to kind of like put all the problems at arm's length and just say, well, these people have done this, because I always want to bring it down to me, and I think about me, and I think about when I've made mistakes and when I get things wrong in life. You know, we all make mistakes, we all make wrong decisions, we've got the information to hand and we make decisions. Sometimes they go one way, sometimes they go another, but the mistakes I've made or the issues I've had in my life that have stuck with me and have made me really kind of like, you know, it still smarts when you think about it, are all around issues of integrity. When I made a decision or allowed something to happen that cut across my core value because I wanted something. So I let some core value of honesty, of care, of concern for others, I let that go because I wanted something else. These are the things that have really bothered me and stick with me. It's not just general mistakes. I know I'm a little bit of a fuck up and you get stuff wrong and that's just life. But when there's something that cuts across my moral framework, my integrity, and I let it slip to gain something, they're the ones that really, really hurt. So I get it. I'm not just knocking all of these leaders and saying like, man, you need to get some integrity. I understand I'm not that different, but I'm not leading a country. I'm not leading government bodies. Just crazy lack of integrity. Even in a lot of the movements that we've seen, the Black Lives Matter movement came around driven out of the event of George Floyd's death stateside and came over here in lots of ways. And there was so much in that movement that needed to be said and needed to happen. But I don't know if you looked on particularly more stateside, I think, than in England. But as some of the leaders that drove that, you found out they had very ulterior motives and that they took in hundreds of millions of dollars that was unaccounted for. And they all ended up buying houses and mansions somewhere and just living the dream, living their own dream in majority white neighborhoods out of the way of all kind of, I guess, the people and groups they purported to be supporting and be a voice for. In our country lately, we've had these fucking jokers, Insulate Britain, this group called Insulate Britain. Their thing was like, you must insulate your house. Do you realise we're in a climate crisis? The planet is dying and you all heat your houses with your evil gas boilers and most of it escapes into the atmosphere. If you insulated your house adequately, then you would maintain a proper heat profile within your house and therefore we could save the planet. So these jokers had this thing. Everyone should insulate their house, right? And how they raised their profile in England was to walk out onto motorways, highways, it might be in your country, large multi-lane traffic flow roads. And they sat down, they crossed arms, they sit down, they had their banners, and they said, we're not going to move. We're not going to let you go about your business until the government does something about insulating all houses. But it was the most interesting thing was slowly, as different news outlets had the main leader and subsequent leaders and spokespeople on their different shows, they would simply ask them the ender of all questions, which just really kind of did for their movement. They would say, is your house insulated? And I remember they spoke to the main leader, is your house insulated? Well, I'm not here to talk about my house. Whoa, bro. They didn't say bro, but I'm saying bro. Bro, is your house insulated? No, it doesn't matter if my house is insulated. I'm afraid you're saying we should all insulate. Why haven't you insulated your house? Because he hadn't done it, this guy. He said, well, it's really expensive. It's really expensive. I love it. I looked at it and I was like, oh my gosh, you're a decorative driveway. You are saying one thing, but your core does not match your exterior. It does not match. And it's what's frustrating. We could all put up with so much of what has gone on lately far easier if we saw consistency of leadership, if we saw that these people did what they said, that the things they said you must do, we must do, that they did it. But we see time and time and time and time again that they don't. And all around us and in us, we see time and time again that actually some of the stuff we say is not matched by the things we do and the things we really value deep down inside. Jesus said that you should build a wise man should build his house on a rock, not on sand. That you should have something at your foundation, your core, that's solid, that is unmovable. And it's the unwise person that builds it on shifting sands. I think maybe we can't change leaders. Maybe at a certain point we can vote and get a different bunch of liars in. But I think for me, it's like, I look at this and I go, okay, where do I lack integrity? Where do I need to get whacked, get pressured down? Where do I need to allow awkward conversations and time and pressure to solidify some things in me? How do I gain integrity? One of the great ways of explaining what integrity is to talk about boats. When the hull of a boat is formed, it has to have integrity. That means it's buoyant. What is on the outside, i.e. the water, stays on the outside, and what is on inside, i.e. the oxygen and the people, they stay on the inside. If you have a lack of integrity, then what's on the outside floods in and destroys what's on the inside. And what's on the inside that was supposed to be protected leaks out. I don't want to be someone whose hull is exposed and lacks integrity. I want to live as someone with integrity. I want to say what I mean. I want someone to know when I give my word, it's my word, I'm going to do it. So yeah, it's a long way around, right, of what I've been talking about. Been going on for a while. I think we'll probably opt out there. But we are now in the Omicron phase of COVID. And never forget that is anagram of moronic. We're in the moronic variant. But if you and I continue to put up with things we know are against what we believe inside, against what we know, if we continue to live under fear that isn't founded in facts, then is it not truer to say that we are the moronic variant running amok in society, and that COVID is just a bit of flu? Anyway, this has been the Flat Earth Podcast. I've been Rick Flat, your host. Once again, if you want to find out anything more, the flatearthpodcast.com is where you need to go. Use 2 T's, not 1. I hope this has been helpful somehow. We got some great guests coming up next week, next little while up to Christmas. Until then, bless you guys. Take care. Later.